This is for educational use only. Our group has permission for our instructor, Mr. Roldan Ardines, to use this as educational material.
Good day everyone. So today we're going to talk about the self from philosophical perspectives. We are diving deep into the age-old question, who are you? Objectives for this session are, first, to discuss different representations and conceptualizations of the self from various philosophical perspectives. Second, to compare and contrast how this perspective represents itself. And finally, to examine the different influences, factors, and forces that actually shape who we are. The contents of our report include a journey through the minds of several great thinkers. 1. Socrates, 2. Plato, 3. Aristotle and Augustine to Descartes, 4. Locke, 5. Hume, 6. Kant, 7. Freud, 8. Ryle, and 9. And finally, Churchland and Merleau-Ponty.
Good day everyone. Before I begin, I want to ask you a simple but powerful question. Who are you? Not your name, not your age, not your course or job, but who are you really? Are you your thoughts? Are you your memories? Are you the person others see? Or are you something deeper? Since ancient times, philosophers have tried to answer this question. The question, who am I, is not just personal, it is philosophical. It challenges us to understand our identity, our existence, and our purpose. Today, we will explore different philosophical perspectives that attempt to answer this timeless question. Socrates was born on 470 to 399 BCE and was a foundational Greek philosopher from Athens who shifted focus from physics to ethics, emphasizing self-knowledge, virtue, and critical thinking through the Socratic method. He believed the true self is the immortal soul, not the body or possessions, and that caring for the soul through virtue is the path to true happiness. Who am I, or the Socratic perspective? The soul is the self. Socrates taught that you are your soul, which is responsible for conscious, rational, and moral character. The unexamined life. He famously declared that the unexamined life is not worth living, meaning you only truly know who you are by constantly questioning your beliefs, values, and actions. Awareness of ignorance. His wisdom lay in recognizing his own limitations. I know that I know nothing, suggesting that knowing who you are begins with acknowledging your ignorance.
Good day everyone, today I will talk about Plato. The physical world is a shadow of a higher, eternal, and unchanging reality of abstract ideas like beauty, justice, and the good. Plato viewed democracy as the second worst form of government, characterizing it as inefficient and driven by the impulsive desires of the masses rather than wisdom. True reality consists of abstract and changing and internal forms or ideas rather than the physical world.
Aristotle. He disagreed with his teacher Plato, who thought the soul was trapped in a body. For Aristotle, you aren't a ghost in a shell. You are a unified being. According to Aristotle, the self is a rational animal. We realize ourselves by living virtuously and using our senses to interact with the physical world. Fast forward, a few centuries later, Saint Augustine taught philosophy and made it personal and deeply religious. For him, the self isn't just a biological form, it's a restless soul. Saint Augustine believed the self is known through an eternal dialogue. His famous line said, "I doubt, therefore I am." The self is a journey towards God, he said. We are broken by sin, but we find our true identity through faith and looking inward. The self is a mystery that only God can fully solve. In the 17th century, René Descartes famously concluded, "Cogito ergo sum," or in English, "I think, therefore I am." According to René Descartes, even if a demon is tricking my senses, the fact that I am doubting proves there is a thing doing the thinking. According to René Descartes, the self is a res cogitans, a thinking thing. Unlike Aristotle, Descartes argued the mind and the body are totally separate. The real you is your consciousness.
John Locke was an influential English philosopher and physician, often called the father of liberalism. Locke, born in August 29, 1632, in Rington, Somerset, and died in October 28, 1704, in High Liver, Essex. Locke studied at Westminster School and Christ Church, Oxford, where he earned degrees in medicine and philosophy. He worked as a physician and tutor, notably for Lord Anthony Ashley Cooper, which shaped his political ideas. Group of publication from the late 1680s to 1690. An Essay Concerning Human Understanding, first printed in 1690, argued that knowledge comes from experiences or empiricism, rejecting innate ideas with the mind as a tabula rasa, or in English, blank slate. Another is two treatises of government published in 1689, advocated natural rights to life, liberty, and property, supported limited government by consent and the right to overthrow tyrants. The last is a letter concerning toleration, released in 1689, promoted religious and separation of church and state. Locke's empiricism influenced thinkers like David Hume, and his political theories inspired the U.S. Declaration of Independence, the Enlightenment, and modern democracy. He emphasized individual rights over absolute monarchy.
I will talk about David Hume. David Hume disagreed with John Locke. Locke believed there is a permanent self, but Hume did not agree. Hume believed that there is no permanent self. According to him, the self is only a bundle of experience, thoughts, and feelings. These experiences are always changing, so that self is also changing. Therefore, the self is not fixed or permanent.
Let's talk about Immanuel Kant. 1724-1804 was a German philosopher who said we can't know things as they truly are, only as they appear to us because our mind organizes experience. He also taught that morality comes from reason, not feelings with action guided by universal rules. The self, according to Kant, for Kant the self is the thinking mind that organizes experiences. He believed that we cannot know the self as a physical object. The self is what connects all your thoughts and experiences into one person. The self is the I that is always present when you think or experience something. According to Immanuel Kant, the self is the I that makes all my experiences meaningful and connected. The self is not something or I can see or touch, but it is always present whenever I think, feel or understand something. It is the part of me that organizes my thoughts and helps me sense of what's happening around me. Without this thinking, my experiences would be scattered and would not form a clear understanding of who I am. For Kant, the self is what allows me to be aware that all my experiences belong to one person, which is me.
Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist and the founder of psychoanalysis, a clinical method for evaluating and treating pathologies, seen as originating from conflicts in the psyche. According to Freud, the self is composed of three parts: the ID, ego, and superego. The ID seeks immediate pleasure. The ego makes rational decisions based on reality. The superego represents moral standards learned from society. Freud explained that human behavior results from the constant interaction and conflicts among these three parts. The ego works to balance desire and moral rules. He also emphasized that early childhood experience greatly influenced the development of the self, shaping personality and future behavior.
Gilbert Ryle was a British philosopher known for criticizing the idea that the mind is a separate thing from the body. Critic of dualism, Ryle rejected the mind-body dualism of René Descartes. Descartes believed the mind and body are two different substances. Ryle called this belief the ghost in the machine, meaning the idea that the mind is like a ghost controlling the body. The Concept of Mind, 1949. In this book, The Concept of Mind, Ryle argued the mind is not a separate object. Instead, mental state like thinking, believing, or feeling are ways of describing a person's behavior and abilities. Category mistake. Ryle introduced the idea of a category mistake. This happens when someone treats something as belonging.
To finish our Who Are You series, we are looking at the two most physical perspectives, Paul Churchland and Maurice Merleau-Ponty. Paul Churchland says the self is the brain. He represents eliminative materialism. He argues that the mind or soul is just a myth. To him, you are your neuroscience. The self is the brain, no more, no less. Maurice Merleau-Ponty says that the self is embodied. Merleau-Ponty teaches phenomenology. He says you cannot separate your mind from your body. You don't have a body. You are your body. Your identity is a living, breathing experience of the world.